It was a quiet night, and Lisa had no idea that she was about to pick up the last passenger of her life. In this bone-chilling true story, you'll be taken on a terrifying journey with Lisa, a late-night rideshare driver who encounters something beyond comprehension. As she drives down a dark, deserted road, an eerie figure appears, leading her into a nightmare she'll never forget. The suspense builds, the tension tightens, and the horror becomes all too real. Before we dive into this gripping tale, make sure to like the video if you enjoy these kinds of stories, and leave a comment with your thoughts at the end. Are you ready to experience the fear? Let's begin.
Lisa worked the late shift as a rideshare driver in a small town where the streets were usually deserted after midnight. She preferred it that way. Less traffic, more peace. On this particular night, she was on her last ride before heading home. It was a simple pickup, just an address on the outskirts of town, a place she hadn't been before. The GPS led her down a winding, narrow road surrounded by dense woods. The trees seemed to close in on her as she drove deeper into the darkness. When she finally arrived at the destination, there was no house in sight, just an old, abandoned train station, long since forgotten by the world. The station was eerily quiet, bathed in the pale light of a full moon.
Lisa hesitated, thinking she might have the wrong location. But then she saw him, a man standing at the edge of the platform, dressed in a dark coat. He had his back turned to her, his face obscured by the hood of his coat. Something about him made her skin crawl, but she brushed it off, reminding herself that it was just another fare, just another passenger.
She rolled down her window and called out, "Are you the one who called for a ride?"
The man turned slowly, revealing a pale, expressionless face that seemed out of place, like it belonged to a mannequin rather than a living person. His eyes were hollow, almost black, and he stared at her without blinking. An icy shiver ran down Lisa's spine.
"Yes," he replied in a voice that was barely more than a whisper, yet somehow it echoed in the stillness of the night.
Reluctantly, Lisa unlocked the doors, and the man slid into the back seat without another word. The air inside the car seemed to grow colder the moment he closed the door. Lisa glanced at him through the rear-view mirror, but he was just sitting there, staring straight ahead, unmoving. She pulled away from the station, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling.
"Where are you headed?"
For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, in that same hollow voice, he murmured,
"Just drive."
Lisa's heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her composure and drove. The road stretched on endlessly, the trees blurring together in the darkness. The man remained silent, his presence growing more oppressive with every passing minute. After what felt like hours, Lisa could no longer take the silence. She decided to break the tension by turning on the radio, hoping to fill the void. But as soon as she touched the dial, a sharp, cold hand grabbed her wrist.
Gasp.
Startled, she looked into the mirror only to see the man's eyes staring back at her with an intensity that made her blood run cold.
"No music."
He whispered, his grip tightening before releasing her. Lisa's heart raced as she continued driving, her hands trembling on the wheel. The atmosphere in the car was suffocating, the silence now unbearable. She wanted to scream, to stop the car and get out, but something in the man's gaze held her captive, kept her from escaping. Eventually, the road led them back to town, but as Lisa turned down a familiar street, the man finally spoke again.
"Stop here."
She pulled over, relieved to finally get rid of him, but when she turned to look at him, he was gone. The back seat was empty, and the door was still locked from the inside. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't heard the door open, hadn't felt the car shift. It was as if he had simply vanished. Dazed, she stared at the empty seat, her mind racing. Then she noticed something that made her blood freeze. On the seat where the man had been sitting, there was a single old train ticket, yellowed with age. It was dated 50 years ago to the day. Exactly the same night the old train station had been abandoned after a tragic accident claimed the lives of its last passengers. Shaking, Lisa threw the car into gear and sped away, leaving the ghostly encounter behind. She quit her job the next day, unable to face another night on the road. But every now and then, when she's driving alone late at night, she can still feel the chill of that silent passenger in the back seat, watching her, waiting. What would you do if you were in Lisa's shoes? Share your thoughts below, and if this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like and subscribe for more terrifying tales like this one.